Hello and welcome back to the Gaming 5. This is Yoshi's Woolly World. This is Pikmin 3. When you do this, you get... ta-da! Unravel is an unusual game. Not because the game is unusual, but because it was an indie game that got noticed by none other than everyone's favorite publisher, Electronic Arts. They picked up publishing duties for this game, and as such provided obviously much greater resources than the game's developer, Coldwood Interactive, had at their own disposal. So what happens when indie creativity combines with EA's multi-million-dollar resources? Simply put, Unravel is a side-scrolling platformer puzzle game. You go left and right, you go up and down, and you become one of the most daring formations of yarn to ever be made. And by daring, I mean that quite literally. Yarny goes through some very interesting puzzle-solving sequences that are purely aimed at one thing: destroying you. If you thought the game would be entirely a leisurely pace, be prepared to swing and fling on your feet, or more accurately, off. This comes out to being a good thing, a bit of a challenge. If there's one thing that Unravel gets right, it's a challenge that is surmountable yet not blatantly obvious all the time. Puzzle-solving experts won't find the head-scratchers here they're looking for, but if you think this game will hold your hand through puzzles, you'd be wrong. Never once did a puzzle take me so long that I lost interest, but rather put me through some harrowing deaths. If you don't want to see Yarny die, that's just too damned bad. So what does all this platforming and puzzle solving amount to? The unfolding of a story. This life story of a person is what this adventure is all about, and your progression is a trip down memory lane, piece by piece. And since pieces have now been mentioned, not only do you collect pieces of the story, but you can also collect actual so-called secret pieces that add additional bits to the storybook. Being originally an indie title, you have to first recognize that the game is not intended to have a massive and epic amount of content, and it doesn't. It's a $20 price tag and a $20 well met. After just shy of 6 hours, I saw the credits roll. This even included going back to certain levels for collectibles and a couple of silly achievements. For $20, 6 hours may seem short until you consider that bit I said about EA's multi-million-dollar resources. And by resources, we're talking production values. This is one of the finest, if not the finest looking budget title you will ever find. While Ori and the Blind Forest exercises excellent artistic value, Unravel tops it with excellent technical value. You will struggle to really appreciate the virtually perfect graphical detail until you see this zoomed-in world before your eyes in 60 frames per second. Now that we have that part out of the way, going further into presentation values lies also some major problems with this game. The music is beautiful and the journey is laid out in a nice storybook, but at the end of it all, I failed to see how Yarny really connected it other than being a rather distant and frail thread of analogy. In a lot of ways, I expected Yarny's charm to form a sort of connection, a manifestation of powerful memories linked together, a sort of core weave, if you will. This seems to not exist. For a game so artistically presented and a character so lovingly created, the lack of connection between the story itself and Yarny is a bit jarring. The revelation of how Yarny exists and why he's journeying through a human life's memories never actually comes. And finally, as a person who thoroughly enjoyed Pikmin 3 comes something that may seem minor, but also an odd miss. Be prepared for some things to be dramatically out of proportion for the sake of puzzle solving. Yarny is able to be held in a little girl's hand. So I guess we're putting safety helmets on toddlers now. I enjoyed the unguided challenge in puzzle solving. I enjoyed the swinging and platforming. In fact, I enjoyed everything this game has to offer. The graphics, the story, the journey, all of it was pleasant. But for a game that values meaning, Yarny had very little. For a character so clearly created out of passion, Yarny was the most disconnected thread of all. That extends to being a large knot in an otherwise skillful knitting. Fortunately, that's one of the only, the other being a small knot in some oddly silly proportions that made me chuckle and pulled me out of the experience for the moments in which they appeared. However, I'm not one to make mountains out of molehills, and Unravel is, as aforementioned, a $20 well spent and well met. I give Unravel an 8.5 out of 10. That's it for today. Miso punny. Subscribe for more gaming content delivered directly to your retinas. I'll see you next time on the Gaming 5.